Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Confidently Confidential. I am Emily Paul, and this is...
Hi, it's Kim Tweed. We're excited to be back for our second episode of the podcast that we will one day be able to say the name of without messing it up.
That's true. And this just, it's our second episode, so I think that we can remind people that this show is about kind of taking another look at the movies that made us into the wonderfully awesome people we are today.
The wonderfully awesome and anxious and... joyful and full of self-esteem people we are today.
Yes, and maybe some slight problems from some of these movies, but that is kind of the point of this podcast, is just, as adults taking, thinking about these movies that we just loved when we were younger, and now we're going to watch them again as adults with kind of a different eye towards, like, what the heck did our parents let us watch? What was this crazy stuff that we were, this crazy content that we were taking in, and perhaps how did it impact us in maybe bigger ways than we had previously thought.
Right. And we call it Confidently Confidential. No, we don't. We call it Confidently Controversial.
That's what we call it.
Because the movies of this time, they were very confident in the fact that they were movies for everyone, and that they were good, and that they were putting great content out into the world. And they just played them over and over again, and we just watched them over and over again. So it was a good time.
It was a good time, but, it wasn't great. And I think we are living in a time right now where, in a lot of good ways, I think people are taking another look at things and thinking like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea. But I also want to say, I still feel like there's value in these things, or I hope, I guess, when we look back, there's value, because... a lot of the movies that we're going to be watching are movies that I loved, and I don't want to necessarily, say, oh, well, this is terrible now, because we love them for a reason. We do. So this week, every week, we watch a different movie and we discuss it. Where each week, each of us takes a turn picking which movie we're going to watch. So this week, Kim Tweed has picked the movie. I don't know what it is. I've been very excited to hear what it is. So, Kim, take it away.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to tell you what it is. So, as we did previously, and we will continue to do, I'll give you a little background on the film that we are about to watch. This movie was made in 1987.
Okay, so we were, again, 10 years old. Okay.
It actually debuted on August 14th, 1987.
Okay.
It had a $1.8 million budget.
Okay. Is that but I don't know how...
Oh, wait. Okay. It grossed $31 million.
Oh my gosh, so somebody made a lot of money.
Somebody made a lot of money off this movie. All right. This movie stars Patrick Dempsey.
Oh, okay. I'm excited already, and I think I might know what it is. Okay.
It stars Patrick Dempsey of Grey's Anatomy fame.
Yes, McSteamy?
McLove. No, not McLove. What's his name?
McDreamy?
Yeah, McDreamy.
Okay.
McLovin, that's the time.
McLovin is not Patrick Dempsey. Sorry, McLovin. We love you, too.
It stars an actress named Amanda Peterson.
Okay.
It stars Courtney Gaines, also of The Burbs.
Courtney Gaines of The Burbs. Okay, continue.
A very young Seth Green.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about this movie.
Okay.
This movie is rated PG-13.
So we probably shouldn't have watched it.
Probably not. We were 10.
We were 10. Oh, we did?
Yes.
Okay.
PG-13. The original title of this movie was Boy Rents Girl.
Okay, I know what this movie is.
All right, so this movie is Can't Buy Me Love.
Can't Buy Me Love. This is such a great, great movie, and I have so many things, but continue.
Okay. So the title of the movie is obviously a Beatles song. Can't Buy Me Love.
Obviously.
And I thought this was a very fun fact. At the time this movie came out in 1987, Michael Jackson owned the Beatles collection.
Oh, talk about controversial.
Right.
Yes.
So Michael Jackson owned it. So he sold the rights to this song to Disney for $100,000 to use in the movie and as the title of the movie.
People were making money left and right.
Yes.
Okay.
It was originally rated R, and they had to take out some of the more adult content.
Okay.
To get it down to a PG-13. And it also stars a young Gerardo of Rico Suave fame.
Really?
Yes, which I did not remember, and I'm kind of excited to see.
Rico Suave? Okay. Let's can we take a minute and explain who... Well, I mean, I would hope that most people listening to this podcast know of Rico Suave. It was a major hit.
It was.
And if you haven't, if you don't know of Rico Suave, stop right now what you're doing and go find it on YouTube because it is...
It's an excellent, an amazing song. Gerardo, he wears very, very tight jeans and I believe no shirt and like bare chest with some sort of like leather
we had a friend
jacket
who
or something.
loved Gerardo.
Oh, really?
We did.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure I know who it is.
Okay.
Anyway, so Patrick Dempsey was chosen because he was relatively unknown at the time. They wanted an unknown person to be the star of this film. And Amanda Peterson, who is the main girl in this movie.
Okay.
She actually died in 2015.
What?
Yeah.
How?
So I guess she didn't get a lot of acting jobs after this movie. And she died 5 days before her 44th birthday of an accidental morphine overdose. She was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So it's a very sad story.
Was she ever in anything else?
I looked up some of the other things she was in, and they weren't anything big.
She's just, again, we'll talk about our recollections in a second, but like already, when I think of her, it's just like every girl you wanted to be.
Oh yeah. She was definitely like that quintessential like 80s beauty, like blonde, curly hair, you know.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so sad. This is the second podcast and second movie in a row where someone has died, but I'm guessing because of the years when this was, that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, now especially. But this is especially sad.
She was young.
She was super young.
Yeah.
When they filmed this movie, Patrick Dempsey was 20 and she was only 15. So I think that's something to keep in mind as we watch it as well.
Okay.
And then the last thing that I thought was interesting is they actually remade this movie in 2003.
Okay. What was it called?
Do you know what it was called?
They remade it in 2003 with Britney Spears. No, I don't know. What was it?
With Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon.
It's a movie called Love Don't Cost a Thing.
Oh, yes. I've heard of it.
I've never seen it, but I had no idea that this was a remake of Can't Buy Me Love. So Can't Buy Me Love is the movie we're going to watch today. Emily, what do you remember about the movie Can't Buy Me Love?
Okay, first of all, Patrick Dempsey. We got to start there. Patrick Dempsey was so hot, cute. I feel like at that point in my life, I just thought of boys as being cute, and that's what I liked about them. And I just remember having such a crush on him. And I also think that the thing I liked about him a lot was that he starts out as a nerd.
Yes.
Right. So he starts out kind of in this, he's a nerd, he has like these fringe friends who aren't popular and he wants to be popular so bad. I felt that as a young person. Like I wanted to be
I think that was
popular.
a big theme of 80s movies was nerds in general. I mean, there was a whole series.
There was a whole series.
Of nerds. But I just think that, that scrappy kid who nobody's paying attention to becoming popular is just very much this like Cinderella tale of the 80s. And it was very much like what we were told was going to happen.
Yes. And I also think that, so I think that I connected very much with him kind of being like not very cool and really wanting badly to be cool. I wanted that for myself quite a bit. And as we said before, the main female character, she was like that pretty cool person that, no matter how old you are, you have that person who is like, oh, that's the popular girl. That's the cool person that you want to be. And I feel like she definitely was that. and you didn't like her, but then you do like her.
You do like her because I think you also learn, you start to learn more about the people and that they're real and that they have real issues and problems, right? I think that was probably something that we figured out about her as the movie went on.
Yes, absolutely. But if I'm just going from like the things that were the major things that reasons I loved this movie when I was young was like number one, Patrick Dempsey. I think it was a little risque. I don't know that I was allowed to watch this movie.
Okay.
I think that I was not allowed to watch this movie, but I probably watched it at someone else's house.
Right.
And then, saw it more over the years. But because there's a lot of, like, sex in this. Like, I think there's, like, a losing of the virginity happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I think this movie was definitely pretty sexy.
Well, when I was reading some of the things about it, like, I'm trying to read and not also get more information, but they did talk a lot about how they really wanted to make it R-rated, and it was very much like a jock-centric kind of film, like with like a lot of the bullying and things like that. So they did pull a lot of that out. There was some inappropriate content.
Ooh, the other thing I think of with this is, so if I recall correctly, this story, it's like that quintessential arc, the rise and the fall.
Sure.
And if we want to break it down into our 3-act structure, I think it's probably pretty basic, follows along those lines. Mm-hmm. The fall in this, like when he goes from, like, he has this great trajectory up and everyone's loving him and it's great, and then there's a fall that happens. And even to think about it now makes me a little bit upset because it was very upsetting to me, like, younger watching that, because it's like, he is getting cool, he's getting all these friends, and then it goes away.
It can be taken away in an
instant.
instant.
It's taken away, and it's like, I remember just thinking, oh, but he is still cool, and why is he all of a sudden not cool? But he also, I don't know, like, but that moment where he loses it all, I think of a lot.
Yeah. Well, and there's a very, I don't know if you remember this, but I kind of, when I first thought about watching this movie, I remembered this as a possibly problematic scene, is that dance that he learns. Do you remember?
Oh, okay. I mean, I remember the dance, and now that you say it, I remember where he gets it from.
Yeah.
Is he's watching like a documentary about African dancing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then he like brings that dance to the school and it becomes all cool and everyone starts doing it at the dance and stuff like that.
Right.
That dance, choreographed by Paula Abdul.
Stop it.
For sure.
What is up with this movie? This movie was very, like, a very, very big deal. And I guess that it was. I mean, it was a super hit of that time. But yeah, I'm going to be so interested to watch it. I have not seen it in a long time. When was the last time you watched this movie?
It's been a really long time for me too. I think I get this movie sometimes confused. There was another movie of Patrick Dempsey's around the same time, like Loverboy or something like that.
Loverboy. Oh, was that where he was like dating
pizza guy?
And he was like dating older women. Yes. Can you say cougar?
Yeah,
is that a slur?
No.
I may be one now. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, so I get that confused with it. And then, and I also think that there were allusions to this movie in that Emma Stone movie, Easy A.
Right. But it's very California to me, like this movie. Because I feel like a lot of movies are that time when you saw because this is high school.
Yeah.
So when you saw high school students, like, they eat outside,
right.
And there's like, they're walking, their hallways are outside, which not where we went. Like, we grew up in New Jersey, and that's just not a thing.
Right. Well, this was filmed in Tucson. So it was at a high school in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay. I also feel like in this movie, there's definitely some hardcore bullying in this movie that we're going to see.
And I remember who the bully is, and I think he's like one of the, 5 guys that were bullies in the 80s.
Sure. I also feel like there's going to be a great slow clap scene in this movie.
Maybe.
Because there's definitely like an impassioned speech that happens towards the end. And I want to say that as a kid, definitely at this age, anytime like I felt like an injustice or something like that, I feel like I had a lot of fantasies, like when I'm thinking about like daydreams, where I was giving like a speech like that.
Oh, really?
Because I feel like that happened a lot in the 80s.
Did you ever have to do that?
give a speech about injustice
redeem yourself.
to redeem myself. It's never happened. Not yet.
It could still
I
happen.
mean, it could still happen. I'm ready for it. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've been watching a lot of movies,
Well, I
with
hope
a lot
I'm
of
there,
speeches.
because I'll start the slow clap for you.
Oh, good. I'm so excited. Okay. So I guess we'll go watch this movie.
Yeah.
We'll come back and talk to it. Now that you say the thing about the dance, I'm definitely a little bit nervous about
I
it.
know.
There's going to be a lot of things. I mean, and also just the premise of it. I mean, the premise is that he's like unpopular and he decides he's going to pay a girl. So he pays the... So
Yeah,
it's
it's
like...
a prostitution.
It's prostitution.
Yeah.
But I also think they set it up in a way where you're just like, oh, yeah, of course she had to do that.
Right. Because of her... Do you remember why?
Yeah, because she spilled something on her mom's outfit.
White suede outfit with fringe.
So
I'm excited. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. And with that, I guess we're going to go and watch this movie. We'll be right back.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
All right, so we're back.
We are.
We just watched Can't Buy Me Love.
We sure did.
Feeling a little awkward. I don't know about you. So, before we talk about our thoughts and feelings on that fine film, I thought we would read a little synopsis of exactly what the movie was about, because I don't think we're very good at putting into words after taking it all in sometimes.
I also think that even though I feel like I remembered what the movie was before we saw it, I definitely didn't.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely certain things that I do think that even if you've seen this movie before, it bears just a brief synopsis of what it's actually about. So, go ahead, Kim.
All right. So, from IMDb, nerdy high schooler Ronald Miller, played by Patrick Dempsey, rescues cheerleader Cindy Mancini, played by Amanda Peterson, from parental punishment after she accidentally destroys her mother's designer clothes. Ronald agrees to pay the $1,000 outfit on one condition, that she will act as though they're a couple for an entire month. As the days pass, however, Cindy grows fond of Ronald, making him popular. But when Ronald's former best friend gets left behind, he realizes that social success isn't everything.
No. So I want to say that this was the thing that I kept thinking of as I watched this. This is a movie that we both loved.
Sure.
And I think, as I said before, he's very cute.
He's very cute.
He's very cute.
Yeah.
And that's probably where a lot of my love of this movie came from. Mm-hmm. Just a young Patrick Dempsey who just, I mean,
What's not to like?
What's not to like? Very cute. I mean, just continues to get hotter with age. So, congrats, Patrick
Good for
Dempsey.
him. Good for you.
You really, you did it. You did it. But as I watched it, I just thought to myself, what an impact this movie probably had on the boys that watch this. Mm-hmm. Maybe even more so than the girls. Because I think definitely the themes that you're getting hit with from the girl side of things are, you get your value out of who you're dating, that quest to be popular and how important that is. But you have a really good character in the female lead in this. I mean, I think that the Cindy Mancini character, while has a wonderful growth arc throughout this, and I think that she ends up ultimately being quite a hero in this in this story, compared to like the Patrick Dempsey almost like anti-hero character. Yeah. But I also think that a guy watching this as like a young man would certainly take, like, I just think of now, like, think of like the way like the tech bros are nowadays, where this, like these, in modern culture, the geekness is not seen as this terrible thing
right.
that it was back then. And it's almost like has this like little bit of a revenge element to it with him and with the nerds, and the nerd characters are very are great characters in this movie, like the ones that he turns away from, that ultimately he comes back to. So I don't know. That's just, I kept going back to that idea, like, oh, boys, if I was a young boy watching this, it would probably be a completely different experience and had all kinds of other implications to a boy watching this.
Do you feel like
We paused for a second. Sorry. We're getting used to using this whole thing. Do I think they would have been like, oh, fine, nerds are cool? I don't know, because still it's like ultimately it's like he gets the girl in the end. Right? Yeah. So, and it also says, like, hey, you can be a nerd, be true to yourself and still get this girl, but I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Well, I think they talk about, and I think this comes up a lot at the beginning when he's trying to make that crossover into becoming popular. Like, it's all he wants. The Cindy Mancini, they're the captain. She's the cheer captain. She's friends with all the athletes, the jocks, and then they're just dorks. They like play cards and are into science and things like that. Sure. And they kind of talk about this like clique mentality of the school and how they all used to be friends in elementary school. Like, what happened to that when they were all so close and, you know, tight-knit, and it comes around again at the end, obviously. But and then you see even like his little brother makes fun of him, right? Like, he's a dork,
right?
And it's very like very well known amongst his family as well,
right? But it's so, I don't know, like, it does play against some other things too, because the Ronald Miller character is not all, he is anti-hero, because it's not like, you know, everything, he comes from this terrible place. Like, he's got good things going for him. He's very smart. They talk a lot about how, you know, he's a hard worker. He's saved all of his money. He's talking about, like, investing.
He gets straight A's.
His family is, by all accounts, very rich. I mean, they have a jukebox in their house.
Yeah, but do you think, though, see, that's the thing that I think. I definitely think it was very, like, a classist thing, too, because he mowed this rich girl's lawn. Don't you think?
But no, because I think that's what I thought it was going into this, that, like, it was a classist thing where she's got the money to have this pretty sweet outfit, but she has a single mom.
Right.
Her mom's, like, I mean,
dating a lech.
Like, her mom definitely gets a lot of value, seems to prioritize her male relationships perhaps over her daughter, because she's going out on all these dates and everything else, even though there is, towards the end, the mom kind of hangs out with the daughter, and you could tell that they really love each other and they want to, you know, be friends with each other. But then I see him, he has this family, he's got a mom and dad in the picture, he's got a brother, they have, I mean, you see their house a lot in this. Yeah. You see the fact that, like, his dad has, like, maybe that's the thing. It's like his dad has his own business, and even though it's kind of dorky, and he's got, like, his, what is probably worth a lot of money now, old Chrysler.
Well, I think, so that's the thing, too. His dad is, like, a tile guy or whatever. Tic-tac tile.
Yes.
Is his biz. And, you know, he's got this, like, old, beat-up kind of, like, work car.
Right, but they're obviously living this wonderful life. I mean, where they can have, like, you know, in they're relaxing.
They're listening to the jukebox.
They listen to the jukebox in their house. It's obviously a pretty big house. Okay. So I think that they are, one of the themes in this is that there is a value to hard work. And if you work hard and you're smart, you're going to, you know, that is of value, and you're going to get more, you know, money and better things at the end of the day, even though his parents maybe aren't as cool as the mom that has the cool outfit.
Sure.
They're still, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that part was kind of interesting.
Okay. So let's talk about the part where he rents her. Like, that all happening.
Okay. Yes. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that, and not, you know, not having seen it in a while, you really see how he fully preys on her the desperation she has at that moment. Like, she's, like, out of her mind, upset.
She is. But let's take it back a second, because this imagery, I think, was very striking in the movie. So, the whole way this movie sets off is because she goes to a party. She borrows her mom's dress. It is like a white suede dress with like a bra top
outfit. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Cindy Mancini's style in a second, but she dresses like a 30-year-old woman for high school parties. So she's wearing a suede outfit, and it's white, which I think is important. And a boy throws red wine on her, which ruins the dress.
Accidentally.
Accidentally. I think it was accidental.
Yeah.
But I think that imagery of you have this young girl, white outfit, red, like, wine on her. Not only is it a tragedy, but I also think it's like, if the dress symbolizes some sort of innocence.
Sure.
now she's getting this red wine thrown on her,
Right.
and that is sullying it in almost like, it's not coffee that's spilled on her. It is red wine. And I don't know. There was something striking about that to me that I think was important, because then in the next part, she's begging the guy at the dress shop where her mom bought it, begging him to, like, take it back, give her a new one.
She'll work there for free as long as he gives her the outfit up front.
Right, and she kind of implies that, like, she'll do, quote unquote, anything.
Yeah.
And the shop owner's just like, whoa, like... And yeah, so I think that it's like, okay, some sort of weird loss of innocence happens in that moment, and then Ronald Miller is there to capitalize on that with money.
Yeah, but he's not great about it. I mean, he's just kind of like, he fully flaunts the cash in front of her face.
Right.
And then he, like, she's like, I don't think that this is a good idea, when he says that they would have to, date for a month or whatever. She's kind of like, not interested. And he's like, well, fine then. And he, like, folds the money up and makes a big show of putting it away and stuff like that. Like, he's like, well, it's your loss kind of thing. Like, he's kind of an asshole about it.
Oh, he is. Well, I also think that, like, between the two characters, you have almost like Ronald Miller represents this practical kind of surfacey thing of, like, he's pragmatic, he's a hard worker. He talks about, like, well, this is how much money I got for every mile that I did. So it's like he's almost taken away any kind of, like, romance to things. Whereas she is that romantic, So when you get to this point where it's like they're both giving up something in that moment. He's giving up something that's material, that's important to him.
Because he wants to buy his telescope with that money.
Yes. She's giving up something that isn't material. It's more her. It's her. It's something like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice my integrity to lie and give you this thing that isn't material, but that you want so badly.
And she's kind of skeptical of it, too. She doesn't really think that it's going to work. She's kind of like, if you date me, that's not going to make you popular. And he's like, oh yeah, it is.
Right, because again, I think she has, like, this loss of innocence throughout this thing of like, oh, people aren't really like that. And I think she comes to see, oh, these people that are supposed to be my best friends maybe really aren't. But he sees that all along. I think he understands the surface levelness of all of it, and he's there to just capitalize on it.
Well, because he's already lost them all his friends once, because they all used to be friends when they were younger, and now this popularity has come between them.
Right. And it's very like an exchange, with the money. But then it's interesting because Ronald Miller literally ditches his other friends immediately.
Yes.
Like, there's no, like, hey guys, guess what?
Right.
I figured out let me bring you guys in on this thing that I've figured out, where you can just, like, you can just rent a girl, which I think the friend actually, like, implies it earlier on, because he says something about the car.
That you can rent the sports car.
You could rent a sports car if you wanted to look cool, just rent one. So I think that's planted the idea of, like, okay, I can rent the girl because that'll make things look better. But he ditches his friends immediately.
Right. And then I thought it was funny too that like they show up on the first day of school to do their deal or whatever, and basically all he has to do is take off his hat and his glasses.
Puts mousse in his hair.
Mousse in his hair, and then they like rip the sleeves off his shirt, and then he's just cool. Like he's pushed his collar up.
But he is though, which is which is the weird part of the whole thing. Is like that is literally all they do for this kid.
Yeah,
and it just shows how it doesn't take that much. And I think that idea was probably as a kid like, oh, there's not much that separates me from these other people at school that might be more popular, but why can't I be that person?
right. It's just that one thing, or like, you know, the
if I put mousse in my hair, I'll be cool.
If I have a Benetton bag, they'll be friends with me.
Right. And while we're talking about the let's go back to the style of this whole thing, because I think that this is what I thought high school was. The way that these people dress in this movie is crazy.
It is. There's lots of crop tops, and
Among
all the
men,
boys
too.
and girls. Yes,
Boy and girl crop top is like Rico Suave is like,
Yeah.
here are all of my abs all of the time.
right. They have a home ec class, and he's just wearing an apron with no shirt underneath of it. Like that's fully just not even mentioned or discussed, but it's just happening.
There are also some amazing mullets. Like this
Yeah.
movie is prime mullet. Like there are so many mullets in this movie. But the friends, I also think it's interesting that you have the main character girl who kind of represents this like innocence, but also this romanticism, and she is I think she is ultimately the hero of the story, the one who grows the most throughout it. Her best friends are these like brunettes, which all the brunettes are the sluts.
Yes.
And as a brunette myself, I really take umbrage with that. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like
Well,
what?
blonde is innocent.
And sweet and
Right.
wonderful, and brunettes are just gonna like
Trashy
they'll bang
whores.
you in the bathroom. Like Iris with her garter belts on.
Oh yeah. There was a lot of
The cheesecake party. So, if you forgot this part of this movie, there's the big kind of, I guess you would say, the end of the second act happens at a big party that one of the popular boys is having at his house. And he's talking to Ronald Miller about like, hey, I'm going to have this great party. And he says there's going to be cheesecake there. That's one of the things. Which, like, bring it on. I want to go to that party. Cheesecake and wine.
what a time.
And they're all dressed up, like, in suits and ties and
Yeah.
a tux.
Yeah. Well,
This
it's
is
New
not
Year's
what
Eve.
high school was.
It's New Year's Eve. They got fancy for New Year's Eve.
They got fancy for New Year's
And
Eve.
Cindy Mancini, she wore her like two-piece linen suit with her little black shell and her fancy earrings because she dressed like she was 30 years old. But I have to say, the clothes, I mean, her clothes in general was everything I ever wanted in fashion.
Right. So there were, do you remember these dolls when we were probably almost exactly that age? Like, 'cause I remember I got one for Christmas when I was in like 5th grade.
Okay.
And they were fashion dolls. They weren't like a Barbie. They were bigger than a Barbie.
And soft.
And soft.
Yes.
And they had all different ones
Yes.
that you could have, different styles. And there was a blonde.
Yes.
Mimi was her name. And looked almost exactly like, I mean, I feel like that character was probably the basis for this thing. Because I remember she had like a purple blazer that was on and like a mini skirt. And it was that exact same
I had
style.
the dark-haired one. I probably had the whore one. So.
You had the whore one. You had to talk to your dog. You're like, why does the dog keep going in the closet with Ken? What's going on?
And then the girl, Cindy Mancini, she completely falls in love with Ronald Miller halfway through because she sees in him, right, that he believes in her.
He does.
And
They
she
kind
can
of
be
say those
herself.
things. She can be herself, and she's like a writer, and she has written these poems, and she reads her poems to him, and he doesn't just like mock her. He says, "Oh, it's beautiful what you wrote," and and that means a lot to her. And I think that she realizes that she's never been able to be her true self either. So it's funny. It's like she's realizing the importance of being your true self through him not being his true self throughout it. And then eventually at the end, he realizes, I guess you have to be your true self as well. Although, oh my God, can we talk about how he's like, also like the low point where the poop on his...
You shit on my house.
You shit on my house. It was so sad.
Yeah, there's a part that I completely forgot about, but so Ronald Miller, he's hanging out with those popular football boys, and they go out on mischief night, and they're like talking about how they're going to hit the same house they hit every year. And it turns out that it's Ronald's bestie's, Kenneth's house. And
former nerd bestie.
Yeah, so they get there, and Ronald's all like, I can't do it. And then they're like, what are you, a nerd again? Stuff like that. So he takes a bag of shit.
Human shit.
Human shit.
They tell you that it's
Rico Suave tells you that it's human shit.
Right, and they just have it in the car.
Right.
Like the whole car wouldn't just stink.
It's not
like when you open the door, you'd be like, oh my God, it stinks in here. That bag of shit.
But they're fine with it.
They're fine with it.
And someone had to put it in the bag, so we assume that was probably...
The blonde-haired, jock boy, because he's farting.
Yeah.
Like, that's also a storyline I did not recall.
No.
Yeah,
The humorous aspect of it is him farting deadly farts into the little brother's face.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so they go to this guy's house on mischief night, and Ronald's the one that throws the bag of shit at the door. And then because this has happened to them every year, Kenneth and his family are all ready to catch him, and they catch Ronald Miller. And of course, Kenneth is heartbroken that this is his best friend, but he lets him go.
He does.
And that's pretty awful.
It's so awful when he says that. It's just...
And then at the end, they kind of
Did
fight.
you also think, and like, I was thinking, is Kenneth gay? And I had that thought earlier on. Not that there was any sort of like overt stuff there, but I do feel like you had this kind of cast of characters that was in the nerd crew. And so you had like this almost like skatery dude. You had maybe what you would consider just like a stereotypical nerd guy. And then you had Kenneth, who was always very like well put together. I don't know. It just struck me that maybe he's gay because he does seem to like, maybe he's just a good friend.
I think he's just a good friend. Because at the end, he's like helping that other cheerleader girl with her math homework, and he's like watching her cheerlead out the window and stuff like that.
Well, then maybe I just read too much.
I don't know where you got that from.
I don't know. It's just a thought. I had a thought about the whole thing. And, you know, the other thing, how seriously is popularity taken in this movie?
But I think that's the thing, too. Like, I think being younger and watching stuff like this, like, I definitely had that idea that you had to be popular in high school. You had to be a cheerleader, and there had to be, like, jocks and cheerleaders, and those were the most popular people. Like, don't you remember thinking that when you were a kid? Like, that those were the popular folks?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I got into high school, and I was like, oh,
right.
It's really not like
These
that.
cheerleaders aren't even very good.
I'm good friends today with someone who was a cheerleader when we were in high school. But I don't know. I definitely thought that that's how it was, but even still in high school, I mean, the popularity thing was a big deal. And even in elementary school, I feel like I thought about it a lot, even though you couldn't even be in sports, I think, when we were in elementary school, when this movie was happening. But I think there were popular people.
Yeah, and there were cliques in high school. I mean, you could call them cliques. Like, I mean, I definitely would say that as a band person, we were in a clique of sorts.
Sure.
Not the most popular of all the cliques, but, you know, it wasn't like bottom
it's
of the barrel.
It's definitely ridiculous. Like the popularity thing's definitely, but it's taken very seriously, and it's obviously very important, and I feel like that probably reinforced as a kid, like, oh, popularity is something that I should be thinking about because it is something that is very important, because these people are like giving speeches about, you know, popularity and how you should all be friends and
Well, and it makes your life, if you are popular, your life is
better.
good.
Yeah.
And if you're not popular, your life is bad.
well, yeah. I mean, isn't that true?
So true.
All right, I want to take a little left turn here because we had mentioned before we saw the movie the African anteater dance,
Yes.
which is definitely a little problematic.
Yeah, sure. Yes, it definitely is. I think that he thinks he's turned the channel to American Bandstand and that he's
Yes.
learning some popular dance, but
Right.
it's actually an African cultural dance.
Which he doesn't see that part of the show, but
Right.
we as the viewer see
Yes.
that it wasn't a dance, and it's like really funny which it is like. It is funny that he takes this dance that is not a dance and all of a sudden all these people start doing it and they all think that it's cool and everything else. I understand that, but I do think that it is a little bit like jokey joke. Oh, it's
Right.
an African.
Yeah. Well, I think
dance.
I think that's supposed to be like the funny part about it is like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He
Right.
learned this dance that is obviously something different and he brings it and now everybody's just following along, and because he's supposedly popular, he knows what's cool.
Right. Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention about it was not just that part of it, because that's definitely, but I feel like it was just it's so casual in there, which just shows how
Yeah.
casual those kind of things
Right.
are and were, back then. I don't think anybody, and I guess the good thing about it is that it is very like, the bigger message with that whole thing is like how people will just join in on something no matter what, which I guess is, I don't know, I guess that's what it was all about.
what people
But I also feel like let's go back to Cindy Mancini. The boys are so mean to girls in this movie. And it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Like, think about when like at the cheesecake party,
Okay.
when the girl Iris, who's like made out to be, she's easy. We'll say that.
Yeah. She's
pretty
the one with
easy.
the garter belt in high
She's got-
school.
right. So she has sex. They imply she has sex with the Ronald Miller character in the bathroom. And the older boy comes back, who was Cindy's boyfriend.
Yes.
Bobby comes back. Bobby, who has not called her, like they kind of imply, like he hasn't contacted her or anything else since like he went away to college this summer. It's
Right.
been months. He comes back to a New Year's Eve party and gets pissed at her. But that in a moment, he sees Ronald Miller with the Iris character and he's like, oh, who's Iris's next victim? And they're like, oh no, she's not victimizing him, he's victimizing her. And it's like, yeah, that makes him cool because he's doing that. And then Bobby, let's go back to him, he proceeds to just be so mean to Cindy Mancini.
Yeah, he basically implies that she's a prostitute.
Right, because like, I guess she tells him, I wasn't really because he hears like, oh, you were dating this guy. It's like, yeah, you didn't call me for months and months, so maybe I did date this guy,
somebody else.
Bobby.
Yeah, get out of here.
But then he turns it back on her, like she did something wrong. She's trying to apologize to him for this thing and wants him back, and yeah, he calls her a prostitute.
Yeah, and he says Ronald Miller, he couldn't get nailed in wood shop.
There's some great lines in this movie. Oh my god, it's just wonderful. But yeah, it was great. I also, I'm sorry, I had so many observations during this thing as a marketing person. So so Kim and I both work in marketing. We both have advanced degrees in marketing, and I gotta say, the Coca-Cola product placement in this movie was just magnificent. I mean, to the point where, and I want to find out if is Shasta related to Coke or not?
I assume so.
Okay.
I assume it was probably from the Coca-Cola family of
I gotta
products.
find out, because I did notice that like the cool kids had Coke, and it was definitely amongst like the kids. But then when Ronald Miller's been like banished, he's got Shasta in front of him. So I need to know if Shasta is related to the Coca-Cola.
I'm glad in our this is the second podcast in a row, only of two, that you've mentioned that we have advanced degrees, so people are going to hate us for this. I just want to point out.
It's okay. We're,
And I think there's some other really good quotes. Obviously, in the beginning, when the girls are like enamored with Ronald Miller, they say he went from totally geek to totally chic.
Well, that was in the. I remember that being in the commercials for it. Yes. That was like the one-liner. Yeah, that was great.
Right. What was your favorite quote from the movie, Emily?
That one's, I wrote down totally geek to totally chic.
Well, then they turn it around in the end, and he's, he went from totally chic to totally geek at the end.
It's true.
I also wrote down, about that girl. That girl, what's her, Iris? She's given more rides than Greyhound.
Which, it's so gross.
I know.
There's a lot, and there was, the part, where he, feels up the girl, for the first time, and the way he talks about that, it just made me very, very embarrassed.
He comes home and marks off the days on his calendar.
Are you going to say it?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Let me hide for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's terrible, but people need to know. He says, he gets home from touching the girl's boob in the car, and he says, 17 months, 3 years, and 5 days. That's a long time to wait for some tit. Wait.
Oh no. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, so let's sum up here. Because I feel like great movie, just in the sense of I really enjoyed seeing it. In my mind, though, this one was it's funny because, in our last episode we watched Mannequin. And I thought Mannequin was going to be a lot more problematic than I think it ultimately was.
Yeah, agreed.
This one I feel like was a little bit more problematic than I originally thought going in, because I guess going in I thought there was more of a sweetness to this movie.
Yes.
And there isn't. It's a really
right. And not to get into, you don't want to get into the, the rightness or wrongness of prostitution or sex work or anything like that. But these, no matter what, these are high school students. And this guy is basically utilizing his position of power to control this woman into doing services for him.
Oh, yeah.
Which make him popular.
Absolutely.
Which is just, there's no good in that.
Can
we agree with that?
No. And I think that's the thing. I think when I had thought about it before we just watched it, I thought, oh, Patrick Dempsey is so cute.
Yeah.
He's
so sweet and
so
innocent.
So sweet and cute, and he's a dork, and he goes from geek to chic, and it's, you get to see him become cool. But there's a real darkness to this movie in the way that he's, he is really smart, and he is, capitalizing on this woman's desperation for his own gain.
And when she starts
to
like him,
exactly what he's doing.
When she starts to like him, he doesn't even realize, because he's so focused on the next step of becoming more and more and more popular. And then that's why they break up ultimately. And he then becomes a super jerk and is dressing all over the top and slicking his hair back and stuff. So I do think that there's that. You're supposed to be oh, it's so cute. But it's not cute.
No, yeah. And then I even felt when he, at the end of the movie, after he's had his fall and he's exposed for what he did, and when that happens, rightfully so, everyone's just we don't want to be around this guy.
Right.
Even though they're all not that innocent either. But, what he did is, the other guys are more run-of-the-mill, just jockey people, and he, turns a girl into, pays a woman to perform services for him. But anyway, I think that I found his, apologizing to be very false. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't as sweet as I think I had remembered it. I think when I thought about it before, it was oh, the fall was terrible, and I felt so bad for him. And then there's a redemption, but
the redemption is really with his friend.
Yes.
He redeems himself to Kenneth because he sticks up for him to the bully. at the end.
Right.
But he doesn't really do very much.
And she falls right back in love with him.
Yeah.
And, like, all of a sudden they get back together. Which, I mean, I think that it's sad for me. And maybe I was just feeling a little sad about her because she died watching it. But I feel like it's kind of sad because she, you know, I think there are questions about self-worth. And the self-worth comes from, I have nice clothes to wear and I'm really pretty and I date the really popular guy. And then, you know, at the end of it, even though this guy, like, I mean, he has his own kind of things to work through. And I think, you know, him becoming friends with his friend again would have been good. But obviously it's a movie. They have to put them back together. But it's kind of sad that she goes back to him. You know?
Yeah. She doesn't need that. She's better than that.
She's got great clothes.
She's beautiful.
But all her value comes from the boys. Because even at the end, she's hopping in the back of a convertible with, like, 2 different guys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so let's go back. Cindy Mancini, let's just say, phenomenal character. I did like her as a character.
She's the hero of the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And she's gorgeous, and I'm really sad that she didn't get more acting jobs when this was done, because she's a good actress.
She was a great actress. I mean, I felt it.
For sure. And Patrick Dempsey, you know, he's a good actor too. But.
Patrick Dempsey, I'm not, it's not about him. Love him. So glad that he, you know, had his time and then kind of had a resurgence, and he's done well for himself. I saw him recently in the, what's the Disney one that he's in? I know.
I do.
Disenchanted? Enchanted?
Yeah,
Enchanted.
And then,
the new one. I just saw the new one. He's holding up great. I mean, he's doing really well and good for him. But I am sad for, what is her name? What is the actress's name? I want to say it.
Her name is Amanda Peterson.
So Amanda Peterson, I feel very sorry that this, whatever happened in the demons in her life, it makes me very sad to think about.
For sure. All right, so you're going to say something positive at the end? Is that your part of things? Because you got to bring this back up now. Because you've made everybody real sad.
I made everybody really sad. Yes, I'm going to do something very positive right now. So here's my positive thing for the end of this, since we're talking about, like, women and everything else. So I had an opportunity recently. Someone reached out to me and, you know, was in a time in their life where they just wanted a little bit of advice on something. And I mean, you know me, Kim, I'm not usually somebody who, you know, I don't know. I'm a little bit more introverted or whatever. And but this person reached out to me, which was really nice. And
brave.
Very brave of this person, who was going through something at work and just really didn't have anyone to, you know, vent about it, talk about it, get a little bit of advice from, and reached out to me. And, you know, I hung out with her and we chatted, and that was about a week ago. And then I reached out to her a couple days ago just to see how her week at work went, like after we had our conversation. And I don't know what I said, but it was good, and it helped her out. And she ultimately has like 1 million job interviews set up for next week. She is going to take this negative thing that happened at work and spin it into a positive. And I guess ultimately my message of positivity is like,
how great you are.
How great I am. No, but I think it feels good to help somebody.
Yeah.
And it's always good to, like, take that extra time to listen to someone and to help them. If you have that opportunity to do it, I say absolutely take that opportunity.
Well, good for you.
That's my positive
I think
thing.
that's really good. And I know that's outside of your comfort zone, so I do applaud you for that. Good job. Good job.
Thank you. I knew you would know what I was saying with that, even though others may not. So I guess we're at the end of another episode. This was a great one.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to go think a lot about this movie.
And the impact it had on your whole entire life.
It did. I don't know that, like, it's funny though, like, I think that, I know we've just been talking about it a lot, but I do think the bigger impacts were about thinking about, like, the popular side of thing, the getting the worth from men, which was, it's in so many things.
Sure.
But Patrick Dempsey character was just not the boy I thought he was.
Sad.
And I feel sad about it, but that's okay, because, you know what? This was a great episode, and you know what we always say?
What?
Be confident, but not
controversial. Is that what we say?
That's what we say. We'll talk to you next time.
Controversial. Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.